gun. And as a result, we have gun violence being a leading cause of death for children.
Yes.
And you talk to people outside the country and they can't understand it. They can't understand how in this country we allow this to continue to happen.
Yeah, because we can't understand it either. And Congressman, I don't know why. What is it about the Second Amendment, in your opinion? I mean, we have several amendments to the United States Constitution, but it is that one that people, extremists, because the NRA and their ilk are extremists. They're unpatriotic extremists. And as far as I'm concerned, they have all kinds of blood on their hands. But what is it about the Second Amendment to the Constitution that they consider absolute, like more powerful in some cases than God, the way they act?
Well, it's become a tool, I think, culturally and politically to get people riled up. But every amendment, every right has limits to it. We know this. Free speech, which we're both big proponents of, has a limit to it. You can't have speech that's gonna incite violence and cause bodily harm. Well, if you can't, under the Constitution, have speech that's going to kill people or incite harm, then certainly there has to be a restriction on unreasonable restrictions on guns so they're not causing violence or harm on people who are innocent. You can't say, well, you can have restrictions on the First Amendment, but no reasonable restrictions on the Second Amendment. All rights have to be balanced so that your freedoms aren't taking away someone else's freedoms. And it's only the Second Amendment where we have this absolutist perspective, and that's not what the Constitution is supposed to be about. But this is not good faith arguments often on the other side. It's a reflexive sense where these people are afraid to lose their seats. They're afraid of a primary challenge. And that's what's going on. And the most frustrating point is they're like, well, it won't make a difference. It won't save any lives. They're bad people. Of course they're evil people. Of course they're bad people. Of course, do I think we're gonna end all mass shootings if we pass this legislation? No. But what if we just save a few lives? I mean, the point is in Congress, your job is to save lives, to help people. It's not to make the world perfect. And the reality is that by not doing this, we know more people will die.
That's it in a nutshell, Congressman. A masterclass on why this needs to happen. So we're gonna keep pushing. There are a lot of people who work in this field every single day, activists and others who they have dedicated their lives to deal with mass shootings and trying to get military style weapons off the streets. And so big ups to them. We'll keep pushing and highlighting this issue. Just really
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Wyatt? The boy is in studio with me. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Pop. You guys had to take 1 second off today. Apparently, it's bring your child into work day is what my kid told me. Still not sure how valid that is, but I'm a sucker. Glad you guys are joining me on a Thursday here on the watch list. It's a fun time. We're also going to go through the usual vegetables before we get to the dessert. Hope we find some in the back end of the show today. But regardless of that, you guys get a treat no matter what, because Rayyvana joins me on the program today. She's a Rebel HQ contributor and soon to be attorney. I'm
law
just saying.
school graduate. that at least for sure. Attorney, I don't think so much.
I like to jump to extra levels, you know what I'm saying? How you feeling, Ray? How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm getting ready to move, so that's stressful. I haven't figured out how to break the news to my cat. It's going to be a difficult conversation.
How does that work?
I've tried to tell her, but she hasn't been very receptive to it. And I know she's still going to be angry at me when I move and will 100% poop on the floor of my new apartment.
Oh, my assumption was that if for some reason the new place doesn't allow your cat and you have to like leave.
No, she's coming. She's just also a bit of a, she's, I was going to say a word. I'm not sure if I can say it or not.
There's only one way to find out. I gotta be honest.
She's hard-headed.
Okay, good. We understand that part, at least. So you and the cat are going to be moving on, goodly staying in the same general area, but I'm glad you're here with us today. That'll all be figured out. We'll have some discussions today about what's all been going on in the news. We might as well go ahead and get started off the top. I'm very curious as to where you think this is going to land the president, considering he just announced his re-election campaign this week, and then this happens. Let's go.
Yesterday, Joe Biden had a press conference of sorts. He was appearing with the guy who runs South Korea, and he was asked about his age. But at one point, he opened it up to the press. And as it turns out, Joe Biden, keep in mind, he's the oldest ever living president. He can't look like he's not as sharp. So what did the communications team do? They gave him a cheat sheet. And you can see right there, question 1 is Courtney from the LA Times. And it had the exact question she was going to ask. Well, let's listen to the back and forth. And keep in mind, Joe Biden knows exactly what she's going to ask.
Now we're going to take some questions. The first question is from Courtney of the Los Angeles Times.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I mean, people say you have a compliant press. I never thought this compliant.
Never thought this compliant. You saw there Fox and Friends are talking about President Biden and his cheat sheet, as they call it, as he's talking to reporters. As Ducey pointed out, the guy who runs South Korea, visiting the White House there. But by the way, so you see the cheat sheet that he's got. Looks like the reporter that's going to ask him the questions, pronunciation of how to say her name, and the whole bit. The RNC Research Twitter account here put that out after it was seen, and then Fox News was talking about it some more. So, of course, this is one of those things we saw Sarah Palin do it when she scribbled some things on her hand, was busted on camera. Everyone had a field day with that. But we're not just talking about Sarah Palin when it comes to this type of stuff. It's also a different time when this same Joe Biden did it. Look, Sean Hannity pointed this out just last year when they found out, holy shit, they said, Biden's presidential cheat sheet leaks online and reminds him that way to sit down. Let's get a close-up of that one from last year before this one that just happened this week busted out. Let's watch this. Let's look at this next picture. There it is. It says, you enter the Roosevelt room. You take your seat. We know this. We saw this before. You and your and everything that's personalized for the president to do was highlighted and bolded there. So naturally, Rayyvana, as people see this and ridicule comes across, people are wondering, yo, this guy is old. Is he really going to be able to pull this off?
I think it's, of course he's an elderly person, and I don't think that, we should have the expectation that he can rattle off, a million things off the top of his head. He's obviously not as sharp as he was. But I mean, the criticism, and, I don't like President Biden. I don't want him to run for re-election. I don't want him to be the next president. But the criticism of him knowing which reporter is going to ask what question, I think is really ludicrous, because the people at Fox News know damn well that the reporters submit their questions. And Joe Biden is calling on those specific people because they have submitted questions and told them ahead of time what they're going to ask. So, being prepared to answer it in that way and reminding him, which reporter you're calling on for the questioning. I don't think that's like, outlandish or ridiculous. But I do want, a more back and forth between the media and our political figures that's actually hard-hitting and grueling journalism. But, in press conferences like these, this is just the way that they are typically done.
Yeah, well, I remember some of the criticisms from some of these pundits. I can't remember which one of them said it, but they were pointing out, yo, you're never going to see, I think it was actually Ronna McDaniel, maybe further on this whole thread from the RNC. They're pointing out and made these comparisons towards Trump, of course, because he's an old man too. And like, man, every time he was in office, every time he stood in front of some reporters, he was not getting preset even hints at or pronunciation of people's names or who he was going to call on. We do know there's always a process for who they call on in certain instances. But he was always there to answer questions. Now, they say that part without relaying then what many of those answers looked like, sounded like, and how they landed, which many times were met with fact-checking and also ridicule. Let's keep it real. So maybe this is a reason to avoid that as they have these battles, who's the most geriatric coming up president there is. But I did think about it this way. How old did they say Biden was? I can't even remember anymore. They did say probably the oldest serving president ever. My father is 77 years old. He's going on 78. And he's the first person I thought of going, okay, what I need to put out a cheat sheet card of him saying, hey, Pop, you sit down. Here comes your chief of staff. And there is that particular reporter. I can't see it happening, but that's different with every person. Age isn't always the thing that we go off of, but it's off of the person and how they're responding to stuff. So as you said already, you're not a huge fan of Biden, neither am I. But at the same time, it's not that good of a look. And you're trying to figure out why is it he needs that.
Yeah, just to the Trump thing for a second, the reason they could never do that with Donald Trump is because he is naturally an improv artist, and that man couldn't stick to a script if it would save his life. I mean, even watching him struggle to deliver, his speech after he incited the riot at the Capitol, you could just, and they had the bloopers of the cutouts of him trying to ad-lib and trying to go off script. Like, you could hand him that piece of paper and he's going to throw it in the trash with all of his old McDonald's wrappers. But I agree that this isn't a good look for Biden, particularly as, we're approaching the time where we would be having a robust primary if the DNC would allow it. It sort of does point to the fact that this is an elderly man. He's 80 years old. Do we think he's going to be able to serve 4 more years? He's past, I think the average, lifespan of an adult in America. He's elderly and it's showing. And I really think it's time for the DNC to anoint another candidate, even if it's not someone I like. I just want it to be someone who's going to live for the next, the next term.
Who can that be? Look, I think they said Bernie Sanders he's already lined up behind Biden, because when it comes to re-election, the majority of politicians are going to think that's just the norm, and it'd be unfair and disrespectful to not even allow him to be like the anointed one. Times are changing, bro. I feel like that tradition is probably ending pretty soon from both sides of the aisle. So yes, that's going to be talked about. They're going to go through these processes and still go through this. There's going to be that latest shot towards this. Let's jump to this next story, though, you guys. The president apparently is on the ropes when it comes to that. But Tucker Carlson, that's been the story of the past week. We know this, but he's finally said something. Let's go this.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated.
Trust me, I participate in stupid debates on TV. The one piece of honesty that Tucker Carlson will at least give us. There's Tucker Carlson speaking out, finally, I guess after the firing that went down earlier this week from Fox News, but he didn't mention anything about a firing. In fact, he mentioned it as, when you take some time off from your job. Did you notice that? Sometimes when you just kick back and get a pink slip, then you hang out and wonder, I think I'm going to watch some cable news a little bit. So he's been doing that, and you realize how stupid these debates are on television. And now Fox News is under the microscope after they got rid of him. Many conservatives are upset. So enter one Newsmax to talk about how they can maybe usurp some of these supporters. And they brought on Senator Tommy Tuberville to push a couple of conspiracy theories surrounding Tucker. Watch this.
And lastly, Senator, real quick, we have a clip we're going to play in a little bit of Chuck Schumer. He was on the floor of the Senate talking about Tucker Carlson, basically imploring Rupert Murdoch to silence Tucker Carlson. To some, it seems like this is Rupert Murdoch capitulating to Chuck Schumer and other people that wanted other conservative voices silenced. What's your read on it?
Well, for 15 years, I woke up to Fox News and go to bed with Fox News. Now I'm waking up to Newsmax and going to bed with Newsmax. I'm sick of it. Let them talk and speak how they want to speak. Get out of the dang way. This is a free country. But Glenn Beck, everybody that they fired over there, this is a liberal family that's trying to make a name for themselves, and they have just cost themselves a lot of money. Folks, if you're on Fox, turn it off. Go to Newsmax. Go to one of the conservative stations. Get away from this mess, because it's absolutely a crime what this Murdoch family is doing.
It's an absolute crime. What the Murdoch family's doing. No, it's hilarious.
Liberal Murdoch family. The family that has melted the brains of generations of Americans.
So what makes them suddenly liberal after all these years, after we know the drumbeat? Tuberville said, I go to sleep to Fox News. I have been for 15, how many years, he said, and woke up to Fox News. So this whole time, they've been lying in wait for this one moment to get rid of Tucker Carlson as these lib Murdoch family that they are. Man, the way libs work towards conservatives when it comes to January 6th to apparently firing Tucker Carlson and running Fox News is a wild way to run a liberal station. But still, these are some of the conspiracies coming through, and this is what they're trying to push, and Tuberville was very happy to be a part of. So New York Times points this out, that Newsmax, the niche conservative news channel, as we all know, has seized on Tucker Carlson's shock dismissal and declared itself the true TV home for right-wing Americans. Thought they were fair and balanced, but still, whatever. Viewership remains far below that Fox News, but its audience at certain hours has actually doubled, so it's working a little bit here for them. Maybe they're looking to take in a little bit more, especially as the fallout continues. But really, these texts about what it is that Tucker Carlson was talking about behind closed doors, that's what the New York Times was reporting, and that's also apparently was the sticking point when it came to these executives getting rid of him. Let's watch.
Private messages sent by Carlson that had been redacted in legal filings. According to the sources, the redacted material contained the highly offensive and crude remarks that went beyond the inflammatory, often racist comments of his primetime show and anything disclosed in the lead up to the trial.
Oh, so those libs at Fox News were actually upset that Tucker Carlson was sending text messages or backdoor information about how much he hated them. In fact, I believe it was one of those, Suzanne Scott, I believe, I'm going to blank on her name a little bit here, called her the most offensive thing that some folks call women. And that was probably a part of it. It's pretty straightforward, cut and dry. After all the other stuff that Tucker Carlson said and did, Rayyvana, this was the thing that got him kicked out. And then eventually now conspiracy theories are swirling over. There's a little bit more, but let's see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, just to go back to what Tommy, is it Tuberville? I don't care. Either way, the most ridiculous name. What he was saying about freedom of speech and it's ridiculous. It's first of all ridiculous because Fox News is a private corporation, but it's also ridiculous because not everyone could just go on Fox News and say what their opinion is. I can't go on Fox News and say what my opinion is. The average person on the street doesn't have that ability. Tucker Carlson was being paid millions and millions of dollars to do a show on Fox News in primetime for 6 full years. So the idea that Fox News was somehow stepping on his freedom of speech is absolutely ridiculous. Advertisers pulling out, they did nothing. Lawsuits coming down the pipeline, one after another. Silence until they found out that he was talking smack about them behind their backs. I mean, the idea that this is because they have some strong ideological opposition to Tucker Carlson's racism and, right-wing bigotry, it's absurd. It's unfounded. But if any network should understand, not being able to say things because you have the threat of a lawsuit, it should be Newsmax, who got many cease and desist letters from Dominion? I mean, come on.
Considering they're not this multi-billion-dollar company like Fox News is, they might want to stay away from that same approach that Fox News got in trouble with here. Which, by the way, let's jump down to graphic 3. This is the other part about it. It was those backroom text messages, but of course, I think it was part of that $787 million that they had to pay, which I honestly didn't believe until it happened. But it is part. In the end, according to one of the people with knowledge of these internal discussions, Lachlan Murdoch, that lib, viewed forcing out Mr. Carlson as a business decision. That makes sense. Just as he did with the Dominion settlement, because he didn't want to get that to get worse. The company also dismissed him on Monday with a phone call from Suzanne Scott. Yes, I was correct. The chief executive of Fox News Media. She probably was down for that, which then, of course, leads us to this back end of Tucker's one video that he's now put out about this whole thing in response.
When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
The only thing that they gave any indication was see you soon. So he's trying to find another way to get his face on some kind of broadcast. But, the ironic statements in there, should I let you tackle those first? Because they're pretty ripe.
Oh, I honestly, I was just gonna, talking about honesty when you're Tucker Carlson. I mean, Jesus Christ, do you not own a mirror? Also, why do you look so orange in this video? I mean, you're just showing what a lack of, massive cable news channel lighting, a lighting team behind you does. He looks gross, but also he sounds like, someone who just got divorced. They're a little older and they're not super happy about it, but they're trying to convince you that it's a good thing. No, I'm about to go on this new adventure. I'm feeling so good. I just downed 6 bottles of wine. My life is just about to begin. That's what he sounds. He looks so ridiculous. Like he's almost trying to convince himself that this is a good thing and not that he just got.
This long, I guess, because he tells his audience, that's when truth prevails. This guy's going across this he's going about this as if no one knows about these previous text messages. No one knows about how he said he hates Donald Trump. No one knows about the fact that he said this election is actually nonsense and all these people that are coming on and lying are BS artists. Used a lot of colorful language in talking about these people with absolute contempt, but now he's the purveyor of truth and we'll find him one of these days. The upside down world that enough people are listening to this is the actual scary part, because we could laugh at it until enough people then act on these lies. He keeps pushing them. We'll see where he ends up. We're getting up on this break. Let's take this one, you guys. We'll get a few of your comments about these first couple. But I don't know if you guys have heard this. It's a sad day in America. Jerry Springer has passed away. You guys know who Jerry Springer was. If you don't, we're going to remind you. But also up in San Francisco, another attack happened in the streets. We saw it before with the tech moguls up there, that it was a bit of mistaken crimes amongst homeless folks. Here's another instance of that. We're going to do that when we come back.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I got to let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know. Maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy. Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Watch this, happy people. Let's find out exactly how happy you guys are. TYT members, Shy Coltrane 42, what's up? Says Ray Ray's co-piloting. They call you Ray Ray a lot?
Some people do.
Oh. I need a unique nickname for you. They continued, said, should be a smooth flight. Absolutely. I think we've taken off pretty well. We're going to get to that cruising altitude in just a second. Wolf Dragon Donna says, Murdochs are liberal? Ha 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 ha. Laugh along with me. Twitch, you guys, love you on Twitch. Maple Leaf Dragon says, OMG, that should be a disqualifying behavior. Waking up and going to bed with Newsmax? Well, it was Fox News, and now it's Newsmax. Either way it goes, he's wholly uninformed. We saw that before he was even elected, so it doesn't really change all that much. Let's see. Over on YouTube, you guys, this is where you guys decide to go lighting me up. We'll get to that first. This is the love for my guest. 333 Lightworker says, congratulations regarding graduating law school. Major big deal. You go, girl.
Oh, thank you. It's feels like I just started.
Do we still do this?
Is
that old now? Is that totally 2019? Neil Mick says, wait, hang on. Getting some pearls to clutch. Maybe it's about, it must be about Tucker Carlson and how they're switching things up. Arthur Ashbrook. Thank you for the super chat. Says, you can't do it. Rayyvana. It's Rayyvana, but we'll read it anyway. You're so pretty. JR, you're okay.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice to hear.
Every time. Isn't it? It would be nice to hear. Chef Rockstar, thank you for the super chat. Says, according to Republicans, it's a free country, and you should be able to say what you want to say until you say something they disagree with. Then you get silenced, expelled, and also canceled. And then every time they actually do something that hurts folks or attacks folks or incites some violence, they're getting canceled for no reason. If you're Ashley Babbitt and you're trying to get to some Congress folks behind your mob of people and you get killed for doing so, then suddenly it's a bad thing. In the other case, it's just fine. Okay, Rayyvana, are you prepared for this next story? Let's go ahead and get it.
But what I've learned over our quarter century of shows is that deep down, we are all alike. Some of us just dress better, or had a better education, or better luck in the gene pool of parents. We all want to be happy. We cry when we're hurt. We're angry when we've been mistreated. And to be liked, accepted, and respected, not to mention loved, is the greatest gift of all. Yes, we're all alike. Know this. There's never been a moment in the 25 years of doing this show that I ever thought I was better than the people who appear on our stage. I'm not better, only luckier. So thanks for the 25 years. And on that note, take care of yourself and each other.
Don't make me choke up, Jerry. The sad news today, you guys may have heard, longtime TV show host, of course, in the Jerry Springer Show, also news anchor and mayor of Cincinnati. In case you guys forgot that part, Jerry Springer's passed away at 79 years old after a bit of a battle with cancer. He took a turn for the worse about a week ago, and he has now passed away. He's also, by the way, the child of Jewish refugees who fled to England during the Holocaust. And he's got all this things that happened in his life, many things that he's experienced. He had his final thoughts type of thing. He's an icon and staple in American entertainment. Maybe not in serious talk shows, because there was times when he invited folks on and they just wanted to fight previous guests like this moment.
Meet Erica and her boyfriend, Alex. They both say they were shocked by two guests they recently saw on our show. What's going on? What were you shocked
Well, basically, Jerry,
I'm upset because I seen a previous show with the Ku Klux Klan member, and I didn't like what I heard. You know, he degraded his grandbaby, and he ain't got no right doing that.
Oh, he was a member of the Klan, and
Right.
his grandchild was
Mexican.
Mexican.
Yeah.
And that's right. And he was the one that.
He degraded his child, and he's not right. And I'm here today to show him he's not right, to either accept Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and blacks, or I'm gonna kick his ass. Plain and simple. After today, you're gonna love your grandchild.
What's that?
You come on, boy. Come on.
Wow. People had a chance to get up on stage, fight former Klans members, and I guess get their, I was going to say 15 minutes of fame. It ends up being more like 5 to 7 minutes of fame. He did things like this, and then folks watched, chanted Jerry, and there was also a bit, let's keep it real, a sign of the times. And I think many of these folks that came on the show were maybe acting things up, but it definitely had some questionable moments as well. Remember these?
Well, let's see what, what his reaction is going to be. But you really care about him. This isn't just to play a trick on someone. You really want him to be okay with you. All right. Well, let's bring him out now. Okay, how about a nice hand? Let's bring him back now. Here's Brad.
How you doing? So good to meet you. It's kind of nervous on national TV, I know, but, I wanted to ask, maybe, you could be my girlfriend.
Well, Brad, I have to tell you, I'm a man.
I'll try anything once.
And of course, we saw that over and over and over and over again in different kinds of ways on the Jerry Springer Show, Ray. There was one more part we're going to talk about his political career, but let's keep it real. As he was on air for 25 years, he had his every other episode full of fights where security didn't do much as far as stopping fights. They were more there to show that they're ready to prepare more fights. But definitely moments like that, which I think perpetuate the types of mindsets people have that now has turned into legislation. When this was considered a joke back then, which was bad enough, but now we got people that are serious about it. I just want to show how much different it is. There were still these punchlines about real human beings, but then now it's turned into so much anger, is including those punchlines. And it's a bit of a sign of how much things have gotten worse. Let's keep it real.
Yeah, I also think that most of those situations where a trans person comes out as trans to a partner or former partner of theirs on Jerry Springer typically did not end like that. A lot of times it turned to violence against the trans person. And I think that Jerry Springer did a lot to perpetuate transphobia because this was something that everybody was watching. I mean, even I would come home from school and watch Jerry Springer and Maury Povich every day because it's what was on. And I don't think that he's left behind a very strong legacy, particularly as a queer person, knowing the harm that his show perpetuated to our community. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think of him fondly, honestly.
And as he was saying off the top there, at least at the beginning of that whole thing, when he said, I'm no different than the folks I had on the show, except the fact you had them on the show to then wild out or have these. And many times I thought many of these scenarios were set up and, fake for the cameras in the first place, but it was still perpetuating these types of things. He got into trouble when he was actually as the mayor of Cincinnati, as I pointed off the top back in the 70s, because he had a bit of scandals happening. Here's actually, we can skip the inauguration speech. I just want to say what he went through as that mayor, because maybe this is what he was thinking when he said he's no different than the folks that he was with. Springer was elected to the Cincinnati City Council in 71. He then resigned in 74 after admitting to soliciting a prostitute. Basic. Springer then came clean at a press conference, and his honesty helped him win back the seat in 75 by a landslide. But also 2 years later, he was chosen to serve 1 year as mayor of the city council. And he said he could only then serve that 1 year as mayor due to some kind of political arrangement that happened at the time. But now as he's passed, these types of shows and hosts and scenarios just aren't seen on TV anymore. And I got to be honest, if enough people see it as what it was, which was pretty crude type of talk show for the laughs, maybe they can understand that this is something that maybe these other folks don't really care that much about as far as their anger towards it. And you can see folks as real life people. So apologies for not actually getting any of the warnings there before that other video then ran. But it was the staple of a bit of a Jerry Springer type of world. I don't know if Maury did this much, Jenny Jones, all of them. There was this section of talk shows that did this this type of outrageous type of topic. So Jerry Springer's passed away. We've seen that happen. Let's go to this next story, you guys. Up in San Francisco, again, we have an attack that happened on the streets. Caught on camera.
A series of new videos related to this case could change perceptions about what happened the evening of April 5th. That's the night former Fire Commissioner Dom Carmignani was beaten so badly his skull fractured. One clip shared by Carmignani's attorneys appears to show the accused attacker, Garrett Dottie, swinging a large metal object. Another clip shows Dottie picking the metal object out of a garbage can before the confrontation and, according to Carmignani's attorney, taking practice swings. But newly released videos from the San Francisco Public Defender's Office frame the incident differently. Dottie's defense attorney says one video shows Carmignani approaching her client with what looks like a can of bear spray, which she says provoked the attack.
There's lots of layers to this story up in San Francisco. This former fire commissioner was allegedly caught on camera getting beaten by this homeless person with this metal pipe. And now there's a bunch of extra information as to maybe there's reasons why this action went down the way it was. Originally, public outcry was growing after it was falsely reported, by the way, that the DA had dropped charges against that homeless man they were calling Dottie there, 24-year-old Dottie. And now new evidence is showing that this former fire commissioner may be responsible for those bear attacks and things like that. Let's see more of what was going down in this twisted background of this story.
The public defender also released a second video from November 2021 showing a different, seemingly unprovoked attack on an unhoused person, which she alleges is related.
He sprays with a massive can of bear spray, the same weapon used in the Doty incident.
Public defender Clay Hathaway claims they have reports of 7 other bear spray attacks on homeless people within a 4-block radius of Carmignani's home in the Marina District. But there was never an arrest or any citations in those incidents. Carmignani's attorneys say it's not their client in the bear spray video and vehemently deny their client being involved in any prior incidents.
So he's denying that one, but he did, oddly, admit to spraying Dottie with bear spray again. So either, of course, this can't be proven directly, but either there's multiple people in the San Francisco area that are spraying unhoused folks in the streets with bear spray, or this guy tends to do this type of thing. He did admit to one of them, though. So this video that was turned over to the office by the prosecution shows Carmignani with that pepper spray in his hand as he approaches Dottie, to which the pair began arguing. And maybe then that's what led to the next step. These are the things that are being now discussed. A witness also told police that she heard Carmignani threaten to stab and kill Dottie if he didn't leave. That's according to the public defender's office as well. There's a couple more layers to this. Also, Ray, he has a criminal record. There's that individual there. So according to the San Francisco Examiner, Carmignani was appointed fire commissioner in 2013 and lasted 4 months after he was arrested on suspicion of felony domestic violence and making criminal threats to his wife. He also pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge and was sentenced to a fine, probation, counseling, and the surrender of several firearms. Well, that's just the way these things end up happening. But the way that this was then portrayed, again, which I think fed into this whole idea that, you know, this unhoused person was let go because they're allowing unhoused people to attack these good, upstanding citizens. This was reported at the Daily Mail. San Francisco DA drops, all in caps, charges against vagrant who repeatedly bashed city's ex-fire commissioner in the head with a metal crowbar and now plans to prosecute the victim for deploying pepper spray. If I saw that, Ray, I would think that the fight started. The unhoused person's got to swing in this metal crowbar at this guy. He fought back and defended himself with pepper spray, and he just had no recourse except that.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to push your narrative against housing the homeless if you have to phrase your article title. Wife beater maces unhoused person who then defends themselves. I mean, it's insane. It's ridiculous that so quickly he was framed as some innocent victim and somehow also a hero for standing up to a homeless person, and that the homeless person was immediately demonized when the person who assaulted the other person was the ex-police commissioner, or fire commissioner, who's also a wife beater against a homeless person who's trying to defend themselves. I mean, this was the first thing I saw this morning when I woke up, and I was grossed out, but it immediately made me think of how so quickly, when the Cash App founder was murdered, all of the media outlets were pushing this homeless violence in San Francisco. It's an unlivable city because of all of the violence perpetuated by the homeless in San Francisco, when it turns out he was murdered by another tech bro. Like, it's really just about pushing this narrative that these cities are unsafe because of the unhoused, and they are a problem we need to deal with, which, in my opinion, emboldens people like this fire commissioner to attack them violently when they're minding their own business.
Whoever we believe that society is willing to discard are the same people that we're willing to attack and feel that there's going to be no consequences for those attacks. That's why during the protests of 2020, when folks outside of black and brown folks came out and protested about police brutality, it kind of struck everyone, and it turned into, can you believe all these young folks that aren't just brown and black folks are coming out in full force like this? And suddenly enemy lines were drawn, and like, we'll attack those white folks too. So they need society to hate a certain kinds of folks for them to continue. By the way, if you have a problem with unhoused folks attacking people randomly in San Francisco, what is the plan to do something about it? That never comes. They just need you to be afraid so you can continue to put them in positions of power so they can continue to lie to you. Next story, you guys. Let's go on to more. This is even crazier.
So it was fast, but did you just call our Hindu, Muslim, and Jewish members demons? I heard you say if they did not have Jesus Christ in their heart.
No, if you don't have the Holy Spirit inside you, there's a phrase you can't say, Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. And if you are open to those other gods based on that faith, you're allowing other gods, non-Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh gods, to possess your physical form.
Follow up. So
that would be described as being giving access to your physical form. You're the mystery, hidden from angels for generations, the hope of Christ, hope of God, Christ in you. So if you're not down with that, so to speak, if you're of another religion that's not of that, you've given access to non-godly entities to make your decisions.
Representative Liston, could you bring this back to HB 68, please?
Well,
so
I'm concerned that he's calling our members demons.
If you can figure out what the hell that guy's talking about, then maybe you can help everyone out here. Because the basic question there was, can you bring this back to HB 68, please? Because this is what we're discussing. That pastor, he's a pastor. His name is Stuart Long, and apparently he's dropping knowledge about the way people who are apparently possessed by demons can't utter certain sentences or else they'll be taken over. I think that's what was going on. But by the way, the HB 68 was actually about a hearing on gender affirming care. This is out in Ohio. And this pastor then tried to argue that anyone who isn't about limiting people's rights is then possessed by demons. There's more.
I'm concerned that he's calling our members demons and saying that that's why we support this, we are against this bill.
No, we're all hopefully human entities, but like what you allow to rule your spirit, your soul, and a body, right? And what you allow to rule in the spirit controls your physical soul and your body if you're in order. But a lot of times your body's in control, uses the spirit to feed its energy. It's kind of a medical physical conversation. I'm not calling you demons. I'm just bringing up the fact that you might be possessed and making decisions without the discernment of God.
All right, and I will just say on behalf of my members and those we represent of other religious backgrounds that any opposition to this bill, I will strongly say, is not from possession by demons. But so thank you.
Ray, this is a real political debate in a real state in the United States of America to talk about demon possession. And if you're against this policy of allowing freedom, then you might be possessed by demons because you opened yourself up to it. Freedom equals demonic possession.
I think that was line for line a scene from Parks and Recreation where they hold a public forum. Like, I mean, why is this person giving testimony about this?
Oh, we'll get to that.
I mean, it's so absurd, and like this is politics in America, and I think that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on within their state legislators, but debates over a lot of bills where they have open questions from the public sort of devolve into this nonsense, and it's really I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's like depressing to know that this is the state of discourse in American politics, where it's one person being completely reasonable and rational and another person talking about human entities and how some of the people in the room are demons and they're not flesh because they haven't accepted Jesus Christ, which is, I think, is silly to also, he's talking about how Muslims they don't believe in the same Christian God, and they don't accept Jesus, which I think I would just like for conservatives to learn that Jesus is a prophet in Islam. I think that's like my baseline right now. Just if you're going to do some criticism, just know like a little bit about the religion that you're criticizing.
You need some starting point in order to have these kinds of conversations. But you asked how this guy showed up. I was actually watching folks in the background because I like doing that when it comes to crazy hearings or someone speaking, whoever may be off camera that doesn't realize their faces are being shown. There's one particular gentleman who actually, I think he's the one who invited this one pastor to talk about these things. His name is Gary Click. He was hanging out back there. Let's look at what he was doing as he was speaking.
And if you are open to those other gods based on that faith, you're allowing other gods, non-Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh gods, to possess your physical form.
So this is the expression he was making as this thing was going down. So the USA Today then eventually did catch up to see why he's making these eyebrow raises and head nods and shakes as this guy's going through his thought process. Representative Gary Click told the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau that he, quote, did not agree with him. Put that in all caps, he said. That was just an ignorant statement. I cannot emphasize enough how much I don't support those statements. If you guys haven't noticed, the part when they said put it all in caps, they decided to go ahead and not put it all in caps. I think that's maybe part of their process. But he wanted to make sure it was known in any kind of exclamations that he could. He has no agreement to this, but he brought him in anyway. So this one particular thing that he's pushing back against, by the way, I'll give you at least details of that so we can see where the demonic possession started. This House Bill 68 is having its second hearing at the State House. It will restrict the kinds of medical treatments transgender minors could access in Ohio. Hormones, puberty blockers, and surgery would be all off limits until a person turned 18. And also minors currently on hormones would have 180 days from the bill's enactment to quit treatment or leave the state. Pause. Quit treatment or leave the state. So maybe you can get the hell out of the state, right? How about this last sentence there? And it would let Ohio's Attorney General potentially penalize doctors or therapists who refer patients out of state. So Ray, I mean, maybe I've gotten worse at math, but if you're in one state and then you're forced to leave because of these oppressive laws, and then if they said, no, you can't go to another state, that would leave you in the same one state, limiting your rights and also limiting your ability to move freely in the same United States of America. Maybe it's not math, but it definitely doesn't make any sense.
That's the party that loves freedom and individual liberties, though. That's the party and it's all about protecting the children. Just don't pay attention to the fact that limiting access to this care will result in more children committing suicide, dying by suicide. They don't care about that because it's not about protecting the children. And if anyone in the story is actually demons, it's the people who wrote this bill and are fighting to pass this bill. And I'm just like so tired of having to report. Feels like every time I'm on a show or every day I'm looking for stories for Rebel HQ about the next evil bill seeking to, limit access to gender affirming care for trans kids or adults in places too now. It's just, we're so far gone from what the science actually says. We're so far gone, even just from what being a decent human being means, and the dehumanization of trans people, and the idea that the community is a community that's grooming people into being trans, and instead of, these demons who virulently hate trans people and want to force their Christo-fascist ideology on everyone in the country. The video's funny. The guy, ranting about demons. If you see that guy doing that in public, take cover or run because he's about to do something messed up. But, behind it is something so just more insidious and depressing. And we need to keep covering these and fighting back against these bills.
You touched on my last thought here. Was I want you guys to remember every time I talk about drag queen type of legislation, to trans legislation, to general gay legislation, to marriage legislation, any of this stuff that they're fighting to limit folks' rights on, it's based solely off of their belief systems, their religious belief systems, which they feel are superior to others. He even pointed out right there, he's in a hearing talking about legislation, and he said, if you're Muslim, you're here, and if you're Christian, you're here. It's the way that they openly talk about it. But you can have that belief system yourself, but you cannot put that on everyone else. All of these laws are based strictly off of your religion. It starts and ends there, but they don't say it that much. It's also why they keep talking about this separation of church and state doesn't actually exist, because if you accept that, you then can't go with all of these oppressive legislative laws that you're trying to push through. And that's just the basis to this whole thing. And we've seen from people who dressed up back in the day as drag queens and done all this, that they actually don't care about it. It's about power. So now they're even using the Christian religion that they say they believe in for more power. Real Christians should be offended by it. Let's go to this next story over at WWE. John Iadarola and I tend to talk about wrestling, but we haven't talked about the things that happen behind the scenes. You guys may have known Vince McMahon. Watch.
This is the biggest thing Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon have ever done. Yeah. Combining forces like this there's nothing like this. There's never been anything like this. Everyone was very interested in us, and I appreciate that. But the synergies that Ari brings, totally different than everyone else.
You are the WWE, and the WWE is you. So why?
It's the right time. It's the right time to do the right thing. And it's the next evolution of WWE.
That wax figure version of Vince McMahon was talking about this very exciting merger between Endeavor and WWE. They also own UFC, so this is a huge deal. They've merged together $21 and so billion worth of a couple businesses all coming together, which of course, as we've seen all the scandals that swirled around the WWE specifically and Vince McMahon, another one has popped up since that event that was just about a month ago. Let's see what he's been up to.
The wild card throughout the bidding process was what role, if any, WWE founder Vince McMahon would play in a new company after a sexual misconduct scandal. McMahon was forced to retire thereafter. He left the company for nearly 6 months before returning to help lead a potential transaction. Most had assumed McMahon would leave altogether if a deal happened. He is staying on as executive chairman of the board at the behest of Emanuel himself. I can't help but wonder, and I have to ask you, had the scandal not happened,
right,
would we be sitting here today?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it makes sense. Nothing's ever happened like this before. And again, I'm always looking what's best for our stockholders, what's best for the company.
He's resetting to the money, but when it comes to those sexual misconduct type of things that made him step down several months ago, and then he jumped back in apparently in January of this year, this is actually what's going on now from the writers of many of these scripts and character development. There's a new lawsuit, so he skirted that one. Here's what we're dealing with now. World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporation, Vince McMahon, and other executives allegedly discriminated and retaliated against a black female writer for objecting to, quote, offensively racist and stereotypical jargon used in the scripts of black wrestlers, including Bianca Belair and Apollo Crews. That's according to that lawsuit. Here's what some of those details of that. Abrams is that black writer that is now suing. She began writing for WWE SmackDown and WWE Monday Night Raw in 2020. She complained of racial and gender stereotypes in scripts. Here's some details, including ones instructing Belair to say, uh-oh, don't make me take off my earrings and beat your ass, and to Cruz to speak with a stereotypical, exaggerated Nigerian accent. So Cruz, by the way, has Nigerian background, but he does not have that strong of an accent, but he wanted him to play it up for the cameras. Here's a picture of Bianca Belair, who apparently was supposed to take off her earrings and go, I'm gonna beat your ass. I think we can kind of see the reasons why he wanted that to happen. There's other instances of some of these things that were pitched in writer meetings. Another of these alleged pitches involved Reggie, who now wrestles under the name Scripts in NXT, and Shane Thorne, who also was released by WWE in 2021. In around spring of that year, Ryan Callahan allegedly pitched that Thorne, a white Caucasian male, would, quote, hunt Reggie, who's a black man, for fun. This allegedly included an idea for Reggie to be, quote, held captive in cages. More pictures just going around for these fun storylines. I got one more, Ray. There's another one. In this suit, Abrams also alleges that during her employment, several writers made racist pitches, one of which included the idea of this backstory for Saudi Arabian-born wrestler Mansoor having secretly orchestrated the attacks of September 11th, 2001. And for anyone who's watched Vince McMahon when he was in charge of all this happening throughout the years, there was plenty of comments, storylines, and wrestlers that were absolutely objectified, stereotyped, and they're supposed to be in these boxes. And now that he's found himself back in here, this writer's bringing this up, and she wants some retribution.
Yeah, and I mean, and she should get it. But just, I want to mention that I'm really tired of people who say that, you know, a false accusation of sexual harassment or sexual assault can ruin a man's life. Because Vince McMahon stepped down for 6 months and then got to step right back up. And that you showed a graphic. He's on screen there with Dana White, who beat his wife on camera. No repercussions for that. Not any repercussions for that. So, you know, but so there's, you know, when has a man's life ever been ruined from a real accusation? So please stop saying that. But I mean, it's really messed up because my understanding is, I'm not a big wrestling fan, but from what I know, I have friends who are, the community who watches it is very diverse and very accepting. So knowing that the writers on the back end are subjecting, you know, other writers to racism or sexism, you know, I could see that really resonating as a cause for the community who enjoys watching wrestling to sort of rally around and defend the, you know, the writer who was subject to that abuse.
Yeah, my kid is deep into it, and he's been telling me all these backstories. And he did mention that fans, many times when they heard that Vince McMahon was coming back, they were supposed to have protests and start chanting other things. And we haven't seen that yet because it's still behind the scenes. He's trying to keep his thumb on it without actually showing his face that much anymore because apparently he's been doing things to his face. Damn. You mean what Vince McMahon usually looked like? Look up Vince McMahon before now and then compare it to that image of whoever that was at the beginning of this whole thing. By the way, this writer, Abrahams, she was then fired for complaining too much. And the excuse was she took a WrestleMania 38 chair home, which the lawsuit says many of the other white writers do that. It's a normal thing because they're done with them and they're commemorative. She took it back. They said that she took it wrongfully and got rid of her over that. Let's go ahead and wrap up, you guys, with this one last story out of Australia. See how you would react if you're out having a nice, calm time fishing, and this guy shows up.
No, leave it. Go down, I said. Down, I said. Go down. Down.
Stop.
Oh, you. Down.
Why?
What's wrong? Down.
What's wrong?
What's wrong?
What's wrong?
What's wrong? Chinese. Go down.
No, I'm not Chinese.
Yeah. Chinese, go down.
We're going home.
We are going
You're
home.
not going home. You're going.
We are going home.
Hey,
why are you touching him?
Tell me.
Why are you touching
What's
him?
in his thing, Paul? What's in there?
We're trying to fish.
What's in there? Chinese. No, off. Yeah. What?
Why?
You steep.
มันทำเหี้ยอะไร
You
วะ
steal. You can't do anything on your own.
Steal what?
All you have to do is steal from us.
Steal what? Steal what?
Lots of assumptions being made by that racist piece of garbage. They're attacking two folks that were out just fishing. This down in Australia. This Korean couple's in Brisbane. So he talked about how they were Chinese spies and attacks them with this crutch or something along those lines. He didn't know that he could have gotten his ass whooped, but they're better people than I am. Let's keep it real. So one of these victims, his name is Joe Prasong. He's a Muay Thai instructor. That's where the ass whooping should have come. Was fishing on the Brisbane River with his friends from Korea when the man approached them and began physically and verbally attacking them around 8:30 at night on April 25th. So he was interviewed about this whole thing and why it happened, and he was still trying to figure it out too. Let's watch.
Asking the man what they'd done wrong to make him so upset.
I'm not really sure. I don't know why, no reason, just come and get hit people. I tried to stop him, but him tried to pushing me in the water. And try to fight everyone.
The group, obviously very shaken up, called police. Job is actually a Muay Thai boxer working in a local gym while studying. He has a little boy and he says in the 6 years he's lived in Brisbane, he's never encountered anything like this before. The police were called and this man was interviewed for around half an hour.
And I guess he feels emboldened to continue to do these things. Some of the things that he was saying, Ray, you'll hear that on your not local one, but at least your network Fox News station, or maybe it's Newsmax, or maybe it's OAN. They're all battling for these same types of folks.
Yeah, and I mean, that man is lucky that he did not get, his ass kicked, to put it plainly, because the person was they said Muay Thai fighter and works in a gym. I mean, if you wanted to unleash on that man, he could have. And to try to make sense of racism, I think is, there is no sense in it. It's bigotry. The man is attacking these people for minding their own business because he's racist and because he's a horrible person. And I think he should have gotten put in his place. But, I'm also someone who I think that if I tell the police what happened, they're going to believe me versus, if I was a person of color, I think they'd probably be less likely. So you have to be more, you have to be more restrained in your actions, which I don't think is fair. I think that man absolutely should have had his ass beaten in that situation. But,
the conscious nature you have of understanding how that may work for you, other folks have it too, but they think, I can do that. Let me find a way to have this come to my advantage and continue to perpetuate my racism. If he thinks he can go and ask me, what's in that bucket? What's in this? Who the F are you, bro? It's just the way these things work, and he thinks society's going to back him up. He was fined like a couple $100. That's more confirmation. Let's keep it real. Yeah. Fine, Emilio, fine. We're done talking. Thank you, Rayyvana, for being here with us. Good luck on all of that going on with the law school. You'll be out soon. You can give us all this legal advice. I'll be asking you a lot of questions. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys also for being with us as well. Up next is the Young Turks. Jake and Anna today. We'll see you guys tomorrow on a Friday show. This week is flying by. We'll see y'all tomorrow.